The alarm screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed in every corner. Captain Day gripped his chair as the vessel shook violently. Around him, the crew held on to whatever they could find. Something had gone very, very wrong. Dr. Hyun stared at his screen with wide eyes. His hands shook as he typed commands. The numbers made no sense. They were supposed to travel to Alpha Centauri, the nearest star system to Earth. Instead, the experimental warp drive had thrown them across the galaxy. They were lost in unknown space, thousands of light years from home. The shaking stopped. The alarms went quiet. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Engineer Mira broke the silence. Her voice was small and scared. The warp drive was destroyed. They could not go home. They could not even move very far. The ship was damaged and drifting. Captain Day stood up slowly. He looked at his crew. They were all afraid, but they looked to him for answers. He had been a soldier before becoming an explorer. He knew how to stay calm when everything went wrong. He told them to check the ship and find out where they were. Lieutenant J worked at the weapons station. He pulled up star maps and compared them to what they could see outside. Nothing matched. These stars were not in any Earth database. They were in completely unknown territory. Medic Yuna checked the crew for injuries. Everyone was shaken but alive. Then the sensors picked up something. Ships. Lots of them. They were not human ships. They were huge, 3 times the size of the Discovery. Their design was strange and beautiful. Smooth curves covered in lights that pulsed with power. These ships moved with grace that human technology could not match. The alien ships surrounded the Discovery within minutes. Captain Day ordered his crew to broadcast a peaceful message. They sent mathematical patterns and simple pictures. It was the universal greeting that Earth scientists had designed for first contact with aliens. A response came quickly. The alien technology translated human language almost instantly. A voice spoke in perfect English, but the tone made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. It was mocking, amused, like an adult talking to a child who had done something silly. The voice belonged to High Commander Velthar. He was the leader of this sector of space. His species, the Vorlakians, ruled the galaxy. They had controlled thousands of star systems for 50,000 years. They were the most powerful civilization in known space, and they thought humans were funny. Velthar told the humans they had entered Imperial territory. He explained that his people had never seen such a primitive ship before. The Discovery used chemical rockets for movement. It had nuclear reactors for power. Its weapons were simple metal bullets fired by magnets. To the Vorlakians, this was ancient technology, like finding someone still using stone tools. The alien commander seemed to find everything about humans amusing. He asked how they had traveled so far with such basic technology. Captain Day tried to explain the warp drive, but Velthar only laughed harder. The human warp system was crude and dangerous. It was amazing they had not killed themselves trying to use it. Other alien ships joined the conversation. Their crews watched the humans like they were entertainment. One of them was Ambassador Crix, a spider-like creature with 8 legs and many eyes. Crix thought the humans were adorable, like pets that had learned a clever trick. The ambassador started broadcasting the encounter to other worlds as a comedy show. On the Discovery, Lieutenant J was getting angry. These aliens were treating them like jokes. He wanted to fight back, to show them that humans were not weak, but Captain Day stopped him. They were outnumbered and outgunned. One alien ship could probably destroy them easily. Fighting would only get them killed. High Commander Velthar decided to give the humans a demonstration. He wanted to show them the difference between Imperial technology and human primitiveness. He ordered one of his ships to fire at a nearby asteroid. The humans watched their screens as the alien weapon charged. A beam of pure energy shot from the alien destroyer. It hit the asteroid in less than a second. The rock was 1 kilometer wide, big enough to destroy a city if it hit Earth. The alien weapon turned it into gas instantly. Nothing remained. Not even dust. The power was beyond anything humans had ever built. Velthar spoke again. His voice was not mocking anymore. It was cold and serious. He gave the humans a choice. They could surrender and become part of the Empire as a protected species. The Vorlakians would watch over Earth and guide human development. Humans would give up their independence but stay alive. The alternative was simple. Refuse and be destroyed. The aliens would not allow unknown species to travel freely in Imperial space. Every race either joined the Empire or was eliminated. There were no exceptions. There was no negotiation. Captain Day asked for time to think. Velthar found this amusing again. What was there to think about? The choice was obvious, but the alien commander agreed to give them one day. He said it would be entertaining to watch the humans struggle with their decision. When the connection ended, the bridge was silent. Everyone knew what surrender meant. Earth would lose its freedom. Humans would become second-class citizens in someone else's empire. Everything they had worked for would belong to the aliens, but what choice did they have? The alien weapons were incredible. Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth. The Discovery was barely functioning. They could not fight. They could not run. They could not even call home for help. Dr. Hyun worked quietly at his station. While everyone else worried about surrender, he was studying something else. During the warp accident, his instruments had recorded strange data. The human warp drive had done something impossible. It had moved faster than it should have been able to. Much faster. Lieutenant J was analyzing the alien weapons. He recorded every detail of the asteroid demonstration. The way the energy beam formed, the speed it traveled, the power it used. He was looking for weaknesses. There had to be something humans could use. Across the galaxy, billions of aliens watched videos of the human ship. The encounter was viral entertainment. People laughed at the primitive vessel with its crude design. They joked about the humans and their simple technology. Some felt sorry for them. Most just found them funny. On the Discovery, Captain Day gathered his senior crew. They met in private to discuss their options. Everyone knew surrender was the logical choice, but nobody wanted to be the one to say it out loud. They had not come all this way just to give up their freedom. Engineer Mira spoke first. The ship was damaged, but not dead. She could keep the basic systems running. They had life support, sensors, and communications. The weapons still worked, though they would be useless against alien shields. That gave Captain Day an idea. Maybe they could not fight the aliens directly. Maybe they could not escape. But perhaps they could do something the Empire did not expect. Something that would make the aliens take them seriously. Something that would prove humans were not just primitive jokes. He looked at his crew. These people had traveled farther than any humans in history. They had survived an accident that should have killed them. They were scientists and soldiers and engineers. They were the best Earth had to offer. And they were not going to surrender without showing the galaxy what humans could do. Captain Day told his crew to start working on a plan. They had one day before Velthar expected an answer. One day to figure out how to make the Empire stop laughing. One day to prove that humanity deserved respect. Outside the ship, the alien vessels waited. They were confident and relaxed. The humans would surrender. Every species did eventually. It was only a matter of time. The aliens had won this confrontation before it even started, but they did not know humans very well. They did not understand that being underestimated was sometimes an advantage. They did not realize that desperate people could be dangerous. Most importantly, they did not know that humans had a talent for solving impossible problems in unconventional ways. The laughter would not last forever. The crew worked through the night. Every person on the Discovery had a job to do. They moved quickly and quietly, knowing the alien ships were watching them. The sensors showed at least 20 Imperial vessels surrounding their position. Each one was more powerful than anything Earth had ever built. In the engine room, Engineer Mira crawled through damaged systems with a flashlight between her teeth. Sparks flew from broken panels. The warp core was dead, but she found something interesting. The regular engines could still produce a lot of power if she rerouted everything correctly. It would be dangerous. The systems were not designed to handle that much energy. But dangerous was better than surrendering. Dr. Hyun worked in his lab, surrounded by screens full of numbers. He had been studying the data from their accidental warp jump. The more he looked at it, the more excited he became. The human warp drive worked differently than Imperial technology. The aliens used refined, controlled methods. Humans had stumbled onto something raw and powerful. It was like comparing a precision laser to a sledgehammer. Different tools for different purposes. Lieutenant J sat at the weapons station, reviewing the alien demonstration over and over. He watched how their energy beam destroyed the asteroid. The weapon was incredibly powerful, but it followed predictable patterns. The Vorlakians had used the same technology for so long that they never thought about other approaches. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and fast particles. Nothing else. That gave him an idea. The Discovery had a railgun. It was a simple weapon that used magnets to shoot metal projectiles at high speed. The aliens had laughed at it. They thought kinetic weapons were ancient and useless. But what if the aliens were wrong? What if their shields were not designed to stop something as simple as a chunk of metal moving really fast? Jay brought his idea to Captain Day. The captain listened carefully. It was risky, incredibly risky, but it might be their only chance to prove that humans were not helpless. Day called the senior crew together to discuss the plan. The plan was simple, but dangerous. They would ask the aliens for a demonstration of their own. They would claim it was a gesture of goodwill, showing their technology before accepting protectorate status. The aliens would probably say yes because they found humans entertaining. Then the Discovery would fire its railgun at full power. Engineer Mira explained the technical problems. The railgun needed huge amounts of power to reach maximum velocity. If they diverted everything from the engines and life support, they could give it enough energy for one shot. Just one. After that, the weapon would be burned out and useless. The ship might even tear itself apart from the recoil. Medic Yuna pointed out another issue. Even if the railgun worked, even if it damaged an alien ship, what then? The Empire had thousands of vessels. One lucky shot would not save them. It might just make the aliens angry enough to destroy them immediately. Captain Day agreed with all these concerns. The plan could fail in a dozen ways. It probably would fail. But doing nothing meant surrender, and surrender meant Earth would lose its freedom forever. At least this way, humanity would show the galaxy that they could fight back. Even if they lost, they would lose on their own terms. The crew voted. Everyone knew the risks. Some were scared, some were excited, but all of them agreed. They would take the chance. They would show the Empire that humans were not a joke. For the next 18 hours, the Discovery became a hive of activity. Mira and her team rerouted power systems, pushing the ship's reactors to their limits. Dr. Hyun calculated trajectories and velocities, trying to figure out exactly how fast they could make the projectile travel. Jay modified the railgun's magnetic coils, strengthening them to handle the massive power surge. Meanwhile, Captain Day contacted High Commander Velthar. He put on his best diplomatic voice. He told the alien commander that humans wanted to demonstrate their technology before accepting Imperial protection. It would help the Empire understand human capabilities better. It was a gesture of respect and cooperation. Velthar found this hilarious. The primitive humans wanted to show off their crude weapons. This would be excellent entertainment. The commander agreed immediately. He even arranged for the demonstration to be broadcast across Imperial space. Billions of viewers could watch the humans try to impress their superiors. It would be comedy gold. The Vorlakians provided a target. It was an old Imperial frigate that had been scheduled for destruction anyway. The ship was 200 years old and had been floating in space for decades. But even derelict and abandoned, its shield still worked. The aliens said the humans could shoot at it as much as they wanted. The frigate would not even notice. Ambassador Crix provided commentary for the broadcast. The spider-like alien was having the time of his life. He joked about how cute the humans were, trying so hard to prove themselves. He compared them to children playing with toy weapons. Across the Empire, people tuned in to watch. It was the most viewed entertainment program in months. On the Discovery, nobody was laughing. The crew worked in tense silence. They had one chance, one shot. If it failed, they would look even more ridiculous than before. If it succeeded, it might change everything. 1 hour before the demonstration, a surprising visitor arrived. Science Officer Thane beamed aboard the Discovery. The crystalline luminar was genuinely curious about human technology. Unlike most Imperial officials, Thane was not mocking or dismissive. He was a scientist first and found the humans interesting. Dr. Hyun gave Thane a tour. The luminar examined the railgun with scientific interest. He explained very politely Why kinetic weapons were considered obsolete. Modern shields could deflect anything moving below a certain speed. Point defense systems could destroy incoming projectiles. Energy weapons were simply more effective in every way. Dr. Hyun asked careful questions. How fast did a projectile need to move to challenge Imperial shields? What was the upper limit? Of point defense tracking systems? Thane answered honestly, thinking he was educating a primitive scientist. He did not realize he was giving away crucial tactical information. When Thane left, Dr. Hyun immediately ran new calculations. The Luminar had confirmed his theory. Imperial shields were not designed to stop ultra-fast kinetic projectiles because no species used them anymore. The technology was considered ancient, but ancient did not mean ineffective. It just meant forgotten. The final modifications took 3 more hours. Engineer Mira literally welded supports onto the railgun housing to keep it from shaking apart. Lieutenant J triple-checked every connection in the firing system. One loose wire could ruin everything. Captain Day practiced his speech, the words he would say after the shot. He needed to sound confident no matter what happened. Medic Yuna prepared the medical bay for casualties. The recoil from firing the railgun at full power would shake the entire ship. People would get hurt. She stocked extra supplies and set up emergency equipment. She hoped she would not need any of it. Finally, the moment arrived. Imperial observation platforms moved into position. Alien dignitaries gathered to watch the show. Billions of viewers across the galaxy waited for the entertainment to begin. High Commander Velthar sat in his command throne, already smiling at the expected comedy. On the Discovery's bridge, Captain Day stood at the center of organized chaos. Every station reported ready. The power systems were charged to dangerous levels. The railgun was aligned perfectly. The projectile sat in the chamber, a 2-ton rod of tungsten carbide. It was just a piece of metal, but it was about to become the most important shot in human history. Day looked at his crew one last time. They were scared but determined. They were thousands of light years from home, surrounded by hostile aliens, about to attempt something that would probably fail. But they were doing it anyway because that is what humans do. They face impossible odds and try anyway. Lieutenant J's hand hovered over the firing control. He waited for the captain's order. The bridge was completely silent. Even the normal sounds of the ship seemed to fade away. Everything came down to this moment. Captain Day took a deep breath. He thought about Earth so far away. He thought about everyone back home who would never know what happened here. He thought about the future of humanity, balanced on the edge of a decision made by a few dozen people in a damaged ship. Then he gave the order. His voice was steady and clear. Just 2 words that would change everything. Fire. The Discovery shook like it was tearing apart. Every light on the ship dimmed to almost nothing as power flooded into the railgun. The electromagnetic coils hummed with enough energy to power a city. Then, in a fraction of a second, all that energy released at once. The tungsten rod launched from the railgun at 36,000 kilometers per second. That was 12% of the speed of light. The projectile moved so fast that physics itself began to behave strangely. The metal compressed from the acceleration. Heat built up along its surface. It became a streak of destruction crossing the void between the Discovery and its target. Inside the ship, crew members were thrown against their restraints. The recoil was enormous. Panels sparked and exploded. Several people screamed as the forces exceeded what the dampeners could handle. Engineer Mira held onto her station with white knuckles, watching her instruments go crazy. The railgun had survived firing, but just barely. Smoke poured from the weapons housing. The flight time of the projectile was less than 2 seconds. On the Imperial observation platform, High Commander Velthar was still smiling when the sensors registered the launch. His amusement faded slightly when he saw the velocity reading. That could not be right. No kinetic weapon moved that fast. It had to be a sensor error. The old Imperial frigate's computers detected the incoming projectile. They calculated its composition and speed. The targeting algorithms marked it as low priority, just a piece of metal. The shields would handle it easily. The point defense systems did not even activate. There was no need. The algorithms were wrong. By the time the frigate systems realized the projectile was moving at impossible speeds, it was already too late. The tungsten rod hit the shields at a velocity no Imperial engineer had planned for. The shields tried to deflect it, tried to spread the kinetic energy across their surface. They failed instantly. The projectile punched through the shield like it was not even there. It hit the frigate's hull with the force of a small nuclear weapon. But it did not explode. It did something worse. The kinetic energy transferred into the ship's structure, turning solid metal into plasma. The frigate did not blow up dramatically. It simply ceased to be a ship and became an expanding cloud of superheated gas and debris. For exactly 10 seconds, nobody in the Imperial fleet made a sound. Every alien watching the broadcast sat frozen. The comedy they expected to see had turned into something else entirely. Something shocking. Something impossible. High Commander Velthar stared at his displays with his mouth open. His brain refused to process what his eyes had just witnessed. The primitive humans had destroyed an Imperial vessel. Not damaged it, not scratched its paint. Destroyed it completely. With a single shot from a weapon, the Empire considered ancient and useless. Ambassador Crix's commentary had stopped mid-sentence. The spider-like aliens' multiple eyes were wide with shock. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers experienced the same reaction. The laughter died in their throats. The joke was not funny anymore. Science Officer Thane was the first to recover. The crystalline luminar immediately began analyzing every scrap of sensor data from the shot. His scientific mind raced with questions. How had the humans achieved such velocity? Why had Imperial shields failed? What did this mean for the Empire's entire defensive doctrine? Thane felt excitement and fear in equal measure. On the Discovery, Captain Day slowly stood up. His legs felt weak. He had hoped the shot would work, but seeing the results was different from imagining them. The ship's internal damage was severe. Medic Yuna was already treating injured crew members, but they were alive. More importantly, they had succeeded. Lieutenant J checked his instruments. The railgun was completely burned out. They could never fire it again without a complete rebuild. But they only needed one shot. One demonstration. They had proven their point in the most dramatic way possible. Engineer Mira's voice came through the intercom. Her report was professional despite everything. The railgun housing was destroyed. 3 power relays had melted. The ship's reactor was overheating from the massive drain, but the Discovery was still functional. They would not die from their own weapon. Captain Day opened a channel to the Imperial flagship. His heart pounded, but he kept his voice steady. He needed to sound confident, powerful, like this was exactly what he had expected to happen. He told High Commander Velthar that the demonstration was complete. Humanity had shown their capabilities as requested. There was a long silence before Velthar responded. When the alien commander finally spoke, his voice had changed. The mockery was gone. The amusement had vanished. In its place was something the humans had not heard before. Wariness. Maybe even a hint of respect. Velthar asked a direct question. How many of these weapons did humanity possess? It was the question Captain Day had been hoping for. He answered carefully, choosing his words with precision. Earth had many such weapons. That statement was technically true. Earth did have railguns. They just could not do what the Discovery had just done. But Velthar did not know that. The aliens had no idea how desperate and improvised the shot had been. The bluff worked. Velthar clearly believed that every human ship might carry weapons capable of destroying Imperial vessels. The commander's next words came slowly, like he was thinking very carefully. He said the Empire needed to reconsider their initial assessment of humanity. Perhaps the humans deserved more serious negotiation. On thousands of worlds across the Empire, military commanders were having emergency meetings. The video of the shot was being analyzed frame by frame. Weapons experts studied the velocities and impact forces. Strategic planners revised their assumptions about human capabilities. One shot had changed everything the Empire thought they knew. Some Imperial officials argued for immediate military action. If humans were this dangerous with primitive technology, they needed to be eliminated before they developed further. Others pointed out that attacking humanity might be more costly than anyone expected. The debate split the Imperial leadership down the middle. Science Officer Thane presented his analysis to High Commander Velthar. The Luminar explained that human technology operated on completely different principles than Imperial systems. Their warp drive was crude but functionally unique. Their weapons were ancient but surprisingly effective. The humans had independently discovered ways of manipulating physics that the Empire had abandoned or never explored. Thane made a recommendation that shocked everyone listening. He suggested the Empire should offer humanity a partnership instead of demanding surrender. The humans possessed knowledge that could benefit Imperial science. Their unconventional approach to problems might solve issues that had stumped Vorlakian researchers for centuries. Fleet Admiral Rin, a hardline military commander, strongly disagreed. He argued that showing any weakness toward humanity would inspire rebellion among other protectorate species. The Empire maintained control through overwhelming superiority. Negotiating with humans as equals would undermine everything the Empire stood for. The Imperial Council descended into heated debate. For the first time in living memory, the leadership could not agree on how to handle a situation. The humans had accomplished something remarkable. They had created division in an empire that prided itself on unity. Back on the Discovery, the crew waited anxiously. They knew their bluff would not hold forever. Eventually, the Empire would realize that the railgun shot had been a desperate gamble using every bit of power they could scrape together. When that happened, the aliens might attack in force. Dr. Hyun worked on a new problem. They needed leverage. Real leverage, not just bluffs. He studied the data from their accidental warp jump again. There had to be something there they could use. Some advantage they could offer the Empire in exchange for genuine negotiation. Lieutenant J proposed a backup plan. If negotiation failed, the Discovery should ram the nearest Imperial flagship at full speed. It would not destroy the alien ship, but it would prove humans were willing to die fighting. Sometimes the threat of mutually assured destruction was as powerful as any weapon. Captain Day rejected that plan immediately. They had not come this far just to die in a blaze of glory. There had to be a way forward that did not end with human extinction. He ordered his crew to prepare detailed information about human technology, culture, and capabilities. If the Empire wanted to negotiate seriously, humanity would come to the table with something valuable to offer. Across the galaxy, the video of the railgun shot continued to spread. Protectorate species watched it with growing hope. If humans could challenge the Empire, maybe others could too. The video became a symbol. Proof that the Vorlakians were not invincible. Proof that determination and innovation could overcome raw power. On the observation platform, High Commander Velthar sat alone in his command chamber. He watched the replay of the shot for the 100th time. Each viewing made him more certain of one thing. The galaxy had changed. The old rules no longer applied. Humanity had forced the Empire to evolve or risk stagnation. The commander made his decision. He sent a message to the Discovery requesting a formal meeting. Not a demand for surrender. Not a lecture about imperial superiority. A genuine request for diplomatic discussion. The message was simple but revolutionary. The meeting took place on neutral ground. A trading station operated by independent merchants served as the location. It was the first time in imperial history that the Vorlakians had agreed to negotiate on territory they did not control. That fact alone told everyone how much had changed. Captain Day arrived with Dr. Hyun and Engineer Mira. They wore their best uniforms, trying to look professional and confident. Inside, Day felt anything but confident. They were about to negotiate with beings who could destroy Earth with a single fleet. Everything depended on making the right impression. High Commander Velthar brought Fleet Admiral Rin and Science Officer Thane. The tension between the three aliens was obvious even to human eyes. Rin looked angry, his reptilian features twisted in a permanent scowl. Thane seemed excited and curious. Velthar appeared carefully neutral, giving nothing away. They sat across from each other in a conference room designed for species of many sizes. The furniture adjusted automatically. Translation devices ensured everyone understood each other perfectly. There were no barriers, no weapons visible, but everyone in the room knew that ships with planet-killing capabilities waited nearby on both sides. Captain Day spoke first. He laid out humanity's proposal clearly and simply. Earth would share complete specifications for their warp drive technology. In exchange, the Empire would recognize Earth as a sovereign power and establish a formal alliance. Additionally, humans offered to create a cultural and technological exchange program, human innovation methods for imperial manufacturing capacity and defensive knowledge. Fleet Admiral Rin interrupted immediately. His voice was harsh and dismissive. The Empire did not bargain with conquered species. They took what they wanted. The idea of treating humans as equals was insulting to everything the Vorlakians had built over 50,000 years. Captain Day remained calm. He pointed out that humanity was not a conquered species. They had entered Imperial space with working faster-than-light technology. That had never happened before in recorded galactic history. Every other species the Empire encountered was either primitive or already part of another civilization. Humans were different. Dr. Hyun added a crucial detail. The Discovery's warp core was badly damaged. Without proper facilities, it would fail completely within weeks. When that happened, the technology would be lost. Earth had some specifications, but most of the important knowledge existed only in Dr. Hyun's research and the prototype itself. It was a calculated exaggeration, but the aliens had no way to verify the truth. Science Officer Thane leaned forward. The crystalline luminar asked technical questions about the warp drive. Dr. Hyun answered honestly, explaining the principles behind human faster-than-light travel. It operated on dimensional physics that Imperial technology had never explored. The Empire's method was more efficient and controlled. The human approach was rawer but potentially faster. Thane turned to High Commander Velthar and made a surprising statement. The Luminar recommended accepting the human terms. He argued that the Empire had stagnated technologically for centuries. They conquered primitive species and absorbed their knowledge, but those species never had anything truly new to offer. Humanity was different. They had independently developed solutions to problems the Empire had stopped trying to solve. Fleet Admiral Rin exploded in anger. He accused Thane of being a traitor and a fool. If the Empire showed weakness by negotiating with humans, every protectorate species would demand similar treatment. Rebellions would spread across Imperial space. The entire structure of galactic civilization would collapse. Engineer Mira spoke up quietly. She pointed out that the Empire's structure was already fragile. It depended on everyone believing the Vorlakians were invincible. But the railgun demonstration had shattered that belief. The video had spread to every corner of the galaxy. Whether the Empire liked it or not, things had already changed. High Commander Velthar raised a hand for silence. He looked directly at Captain Day. The alien commander asked a simple question. What guarantee did humanity offer that they would honor this treaty? What stopped them from taking Imperial technology and then attacking? Captain Day had prepared for this question. He explained that Earth was one planet with a population of 10 billion. The Empire controlled thousands of worlds with trillions of citizens. Even with advanced technology, humanity could never defeat the Empire militarily. What humans wanted was not domination. They wanted survival and the freedom to grow at their own pace. More importantly, Day continued, humanity offered something the Empire desperately needed but did not realize yet: a fresh perspective. The Vorlakians had been the dominant power for so long that they had stopped innovating. They refined existing technology but rarely invented anything truly new. Humans could change that, but only if they were partners, not servants. Fleet Admiral Rin proposed a different solution. Accept the treaty but prepare to break it. Acquire the human technology. Study it. Then eliminate humanity once the Empire had what it wanted. He said it quietly, but everyone at the table heard him clearly. Captain Day had expected this. He revealed a failsafe he had prepared. Before leaving the Discovery, he had programmed an automatic message to be sent throughout the galaxy if the ship did not transmit a specific code every 7 days. The message contained detailed information about human capabilities, the treaty negotiations, and any Imperial betrayal. The message would go to independent factions, protectorate species, even rival powers the Empire had tenuous peace agreements with. It would tell everyone that humans had successfully challenged the Empire and been betrayed for it. The Imperial reputation for honor and strength would be permanently damaged. Rebellions would follow. The cost would be enormous. The room fell silent. Fleet Admiral Rin looked furious. Science Officer Thane seemed impressed. High Commander Velthar simply nodded slowly. The humans had thought several steps ahead. They had weaponized information itself. Even if the Empire destroyed Earth, the damage to Imperial credibility would be catastrophic. Velthar called for a recess. The Imperial delegation needed to discuss the proposal privately. Captain Day agreed, and both groups withdrew to separate rooms. The waiting was almost worse than the negotiation itself. In the human room, Engineer Mira paced nervously. Dr. Hyun sat quietly, reviewing his notes. Captain Day stared out a window at the stars beyond. They had done everything they could. Now they had to wait and hope it was enough. In the Imperial room, the debate was heated. Fleet Admiral Rin argued for military action regardless of consequences. He would rather fight rebellions than appear weak. Science Officer Thane countered that military action would prove the Empire was stagnant and afraid of new ideas. High Commander Velthar listened to both sides carefully. After 2 hours, both groups returned to the conference room. High Commander Velthar looked tired. He had made a decision that would define his legacy and possibly reshape galactic civilization. Everyone waited for him to speak. The alien commander explained his reasoning slowly. The Empire had become powerful by adapting to circumstances. When enemies were strong, the Vorlakians made alliances. When technology advanced, they learned and improved. Stubbornly refusing to change had destroyed countless civilizations throughout history. The Empire would not make that mistake. Velthar accepted the human proposal with modifications. The treaty would include mutual defense agreements. Both species would share technology gradually, not all at once. There would be cultural exchange programs and joint research initiatives. Most importantly, the agreement would be presented to the Imperial Senate and the human governments for ratification. Fleet Admiral Rin stood up abruptly. He declared that he could not support this decision. Velthar relieved him of command immediately. The Fleet Admiral was arrested for suggesting betrayal during formal negotiations. It was a shocking move, but it sent a clear message. The Empire would honor this treaty. Science Officer Thane volunteered to lead the Imperial delegation to Earth. The Luminar was excited to visit the human homeworld and begin the exchange program. Ambassador Crix, watching the negotiations via remote communication, also requested assignment to Earth. The spider-like alien found humans far more interesting as partners than as jokes. As the meeting concluded, Captain Day felt relief wash over him. They had succeeded beyond his wildest hopes. Humanity would not be conquered or destroyed. They would stand as equals alongside the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. But as everyone prepared to leave, Science Officer Thane approached Engineer Mira privately. The Luminar whispered a warning. Fleet Admiral Rin had many supporters among the conservative military faction. Not all of them would accept the treaty peacefully. Humanity should remain vigilant. The danger was not over yet. Mira thanked Thane for the warning and immediately told Captain Day. They would need to send a message to Earth as quickly as possible. The planet needed to prepare its defenses just in case. The treaty was a triumph, but it had also made enemies within the Empire itself. As the Discovery prepared to return to Imperial-controlled space for repairs, Captain Day reflected on everything that had happened. They had survived first contact through a combination of luck, desperation, and clever thinking. They had earned respect through a single well-placed shot. The warning came 3 days before the treaty was scheduled to be signed. Science Officer Thane sent an encrypted message directly to the Discovery. Fleet Admiral Rin had escaped custody and rallied his supporters. 3 battle groups were heading toward Earth. The rebellious commander planned to destroy humanity before the treaty could be ratified. Captain Day felt cold fear wash over him. The Discovery was still undergoing repairs in Imperial space. They could not reach Earth in time even if they tried. 3 battle groups meant dozens of warships. Earth had defenses, but nothing designed to face Imperial military power in a direct assault. Dr. Hyun had an idea. The damaged warp core could not move the ship, but it could still generate a signal. Human warp technology created a unique signature. If they sent a pulse at maximum power, Earth's detection systems might pick it up across the vast distance. It would be like screaming into the void and hoping someone heard. Engineer Mira warned that the pulse would destroy the warp core completely. There would be no repairing it afterward. The Discovery would be stranded in Imperial space forever, dependent on alien technology to move. But that did not matter if Earth was destroyed. They had to try. The crew worked for 6 hours preparing the pulse. They poured every bit of remaining power into the dying warp core. Lieutenant J programmed the signal to carry a simple warning. Incoming attack. 3 battle groups. 72 hours. It was all they had time to send. When they activated the pulse, the Discovery shook violently one last time. The warp core overloaded in a controlled burn, sending the signal screaming across space at faster than light speeds. Then it went dark forever. The ship fell silent as backup systems kicked in. They were alive, but they would never travel by warp again using human technology. On Earth, detection stations picked up the strange signal 48 hours before Rin's fleet would arrive. Scientists scrambled to decode it. When they understood the message, global panic almost broke out. But humanity had learned something from their time in space. They had learned to work together when facing extinction. Every nation on Earth mobilized their defenses. Orbital platforms armed with railguns, missile batteries, and laser arrays were brought online. More importantly, Earth scientists had been studying the data sent back from the Discovery. They understood how Imperial shields worked. They knew the weaknesses. Humanity's defensive strategy did not rely on large warships. They did not have time to build anything like Imperial vessels. Instead, they deployed thousands of small automated platforms. Each one carried simple kinetic weapons, individually weak, but together they could create a storm of projectiles that Imperial shields were not designed to handle. Fleet Admiral Rin arrived at Earth expecting easy conquest. His intelligence said the planet had basic defenses and no warning. He was wrong on both counts. The moment his ships entered Earth's solar system, they were met with coordinated resistance unlike anything in Imperial military history. Thousands of defense platforms opened fire simultaneously. Railgun projectiles crossed the void at incredible speeds. Missiles launched in waves, each one programmed with slightly different attack patterns. Laser arrays focused fire on shield generators. It was chaos, but organized chaos. The Imperial shields held against the initial barrage, but they were not designed for this kind of attack. Energy weapons they could handle. Fast particles they could deflect. But thousands of metal projectiles all arriving from different angles at varying speeds. The shields began to fail in sections. An Imperial destroyer took direct hits from 3 railgun platforms. The kinetic impacts broke through weakened shields and tore into the hull. The ship did not explode, but it was crippled and had to withdraw. It was the first Imperial capital ship damaged by human defenses. It would not be the last. Fleet Admiral Rin realized his mistake too late. He had expected primitives to panic and surrender. Instead, he faced determined defenders who understood his technology's limitations. The battle became a grinding fight. Imperial firepower destroyed hundreds of human platforms, but thousands more remained. And every ship Rin lost was irreplaceable. 2 more Imperial destroyers suffered critical damage. One was forced to retreat with its engines failing. Another lost its main weapons array. Rin's forces were winning, but the cost was staggering. In over a century, no Imperial fleet had taken such losses in a single engagement. Then High Commander Velthar arrived with the loyal Imperial fleet. The Vorlakian commander had learned of Rin's betrayal and raced to intercept. Now Velthar faced a choice that would define his entire career. He could help Rin destroy humanity and preserve Imperial unity, or he could honor the treaty and fire on his own forces. Velthar chose honor. He broadcast a message on all frequencies. Fleet Admiral Rin was declared a traitor for unauthorized military action. All loyal Imperial forces were ordered to stand down. Then Velthar did something unprecedented. He ordered his ships to target Rin's battle groups. The brief civil war lasted less than an hour. Rin's supporters were outnumbered and caught between human defenses and loyal Imperial forces. Most surrendered immediately. A few tried to fight and were quickly overwhelmed. Fleet Admiral Rin himself was captured when his flagship's bridge was stormed by Imperial commandos. The Battle of Earth ended with humanity victorious but exhausted. Thousands of defense platforms had been destroyed. Orbital stations were damaged. But Earth itself was untouched. More importantly, the planet had proven it could defend itself against Imperial military power. High Commander Velthar opened communications with Earth's governments. His message was simple. The Empire apologized for the unprovoked attack. The treaty would be honored. Fleet Admiral Rin and his co-conspirators would face trial for treason. The Vorlakian commander asked only one thing in return: that humanity remember this day when the Empire chose honor over tradition. 3 months later, the formal treaty signing took place aboard the repaired Discovery. Captain Day represented humanity. High Commander Velthar signed for the Empire. Science Officer Thane and Ambassador Crix witnessed as the 2 species became allies. The Treaty of Equals established formal diplomatic relations. Humanity gained sovereignty over their solar system and trade access to Imperial space. Earth agreed to share warp technology in exchange for defensive systems and manufacturing techniques. Joint research stations would be established. Cultural exchange programs would begin. More importantly, the treaty set a precedent. Other protectorate species began petitioning for similar agreements. The Empire could no longer maintain absolute control through military dominance alone. The old order was changing, forced to evolve by a species that refused to accept their assigned place. Science Officer Thane became the first alien to visit Earth. The crystalline luminar was fascinated by human civilization. Hundreds of languages, contradictory philosophies, and constant creative conflict. Thane realized that humanity's strength came from their diversity. They argued and competed, but when faced with extinction, they united instantly. The Empire, by contrast, had become homogeneous. Thousands of years of control had smoothed away differences. Everyone thought similarly, approached problems the same way. It was efficient but stagnant. Thane wrote reports explaining that humanity offered something invaluable, fresh perspectives on ancient problems. Ambassador Crix established permanent residence on Earth. The spider-like diplomat found the chaotic planet far more interesting than the ordered imperial worlds. Crix became humanity's strongest advocate in imperial politics, arguing that the treaty model should be extended to other species showing similar innovation and independence. 5 years passed. The Discovery, now equipped with hybrid human-imperial technology, served as a joint patrol vessel. Captain Day had been promoted to Admiral of Earth's first interstellar fleet. A dozen ships combined human ingenuity with alien manufacturing, creating vessels unlike anything seen before. Dr. Hyun led the joint research initiative. His team made breakthrough after breakthrough. The hybrid warp drive combined imperial efficiency with human innovation, achieving speeds neither species could reach alone. It was proof that cooperation produced better results than domination ever could. Throughout the galaxy, change rippled outward. Multiple protectorate species demanded treaties similar to Earth's. Conservative factions resisted, but younger imperial citizens questioned why the old ways needed to continue. The galaxy was no longer defined by one dominant species, but by the possibility of mutual growth. High Commander Velthar, now promoted to Grand Admiral, reflected on the past 5 years. He admitted something he would never have believed before meeting humans. The Empire had been dying slowly, strangled by its own success. By challenging imperial superiority, humanity had forced the Vorlakians to evolve. The galaxy was better for it. On the Discovery's bridge, Captain Day looked at Earth through the viewscreen. Behind him, crew members of 6 different species worked together seamlessly. Lieutenant J commanded a mixed security team. Engineer Mira trained Imperial engineers in human improvisation techniques. Medic Yuna ran medical exchanges that saved lives across multiple worlds. What began as an accident had become a revolution. A failed warp jump brought humanity into Imperial space at exactly the right moment. When the galaxy needed change,